Hello everyone, welcome to Southern Wreaths. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel and be sure to give me a thumbs up. Today I'm going to show you how I make this really pretty Christmas wreath. These are the supplies I'm going to use to make this wreath. I'm going to start by adding pipe cleaners to my wire frame. I'm using this 14-inch wire frame from Dollar Tree. They have silver and gold ones now, so I grabbed a few of those. And I'm just going to add a pipe cleaner to each crossbar, going over the two center rings. And I'm twisting 3 times pretty tightly. And I'll do that for every center ring. You end up with 6 on the middle. And then for the outside, I just pick any random crossbar to start. Again, twisting 3 times. But this time, instead of going to the next crossbar, I'm going to lay the pipe cleaner along the second from the outside ring. And where that ends is where I'm going to add my next pipe cleaner. And I'll do this going all the way around. And I'll end up with 8 on the outside, so I have 14 total ties. I'm going to gather this red metallic mesh. This is just a half roll I have left over. I'm just going to add it with a zip tie to one of the crossbars that has the pipe cleaner on the outside. And this way when I go around, it'll end where it began. And I'll just trim everything away. I like to push my mesh through to the back before I trim it away. That way when it's sticking out, it sticks to the back most of the time. Sometimes it will come forward, but for the most part, it usually stays behind. And then I'm going to make my poofs. I like to use my mat to help me measure. And I'm going to do 12-inch poofs. You just kind of create like a C with your hand and run it along the mesh. You kind of want to make sure the mesh is all even. So it's not got a crease in the middle, which it doesn't usually make a huge difference if you're adding other things. But for the most part, you want your poof to be a poof. And then I'm only twisting 1.5 times. You could just do 1 if you want, but I've found that when I only twist it once, sometimes it comes untied. And I'll just continue doing these poofs all the way around. And I do like to fluff as I go. So I'll just fluff my poofs as I'm making them. Okay, here I am doing the very last poof on the outside. And you'll see that it ends where the first one began. And now I'll use those pipe cleaners there. Okay, so to do the center, I like to pull the mesh to the closest pipe cleaner to where I ended. Again, twisting 1.5 times. This just pulls the mesh to the middle so you don't have like a diagonal poof. It just pulls everything to the center. And I'll just continue making my 12-inch poofs going around the middle. I do usually go through and open my pipe cleaners before I start the middle, just so it's easier to add them in. Again, fluffing as I go. And then for the last poof, I have to open the first pipe cleaner that I closed when I pulled the mesh to the center. And then when I add this poof in, again, that creates where there's no beginning and end, it's just a circle. So there's no gap in your mesh. And then I'll just cut this away. And I like to separate my poofs and push the excess mesh to the back and then attach it that way. It's just a lot easier so you don't accidentally grab a poof when you're trying to attach it with the zip tie. So I ran out of the really long zip ties, so I'm using these tiny ones, but I recommend getting the ones that are like, I think they're about 5 inches long, 5 to 8 inches. They can still be this thin, but I don't like how short these are. Sometimes I have trouble getting them to cooperate. But I just like to use my wire cutters to trim away the zip tie, and then I'm just going to cut the mesh away. And I do like to push the zip tie towards the front of the wreath because it has like this little pokey part sticking out, and you don't want to scratch someone's door. But that's what the base looks like. So that's just the basic poof method. I only had a little bit of this mesh, but I really wanted to use it. I thought the colors were perfect for this wreath. I only ended up with 2 really good pieces of it. So the way I place them on the wreath is where you could see them when it's done. This wreath had so much going on as far as the bows and the sign, so most of it's covered. I just really wanted to use this mesh. So you don't have to do anything like that. You can just use all the same color mesh. but all the rest of the mesh is going to be white. And I'm cutting them all at 24 inches. I need a new blade for my rotary cutter. Okay, so to do my ruffles, I like to put something heavy on it. And then I kind of curl under the first part of the ruffle and then bunch it together in my hands until I get to the end. And then that last little piece at the end, I do like to curl it as well. That just keeps it from fraying as much. And then I'm going to add these ruffles sideways where the openings are to the left and right instead of the front and back, if that makes sense. I don't think it matters which way you do it. It's just preference. I think it looks better when I do it this way. I was messing around not long ago and I really like the way this looks better than having the crease going up and down. So I put them like this, but later when I'm doing my wreath, I end up moving the one up here on the top out one because it was covered up by the sign. But it was no big deal. I just opened my pipe cleaners and pulled it out. But for right now, this is what it looks like. And now I'll just go through and add all of my white mesh. This is just basic mesh. It's got, instead of like metallic strips, it's just got the white lines in it. And it's 10 inches, the same as the snowball mesh here. And I am twisting pretty tight. I don't want anything to slide out. And I also need excess pipe cleaner to add my, the rest of my ribbon when I add my ribbon in. So to do the outside, I'm doing it exactly the same way as the inside. I ruffle it, I add it into the pipe cleaner, up and down, and then I'll just fluff it. Just kind of overlapping each side. It reminds me of a coffee filter, the way it goes around in a perfect circle. So now I'm going to cut my ribbons. I ended up using 6 different ribbons. And I just like to use my 12-inch piece of cardboard to help me cut. I'm just wrapping it around. And then I slide my scissors in and I can cut it on either end. This makes it a lot quicker to cut your ribbon and they're all the same size. And then to dovetail, I just fold it hot dog way and cut from the wire to the crease. And you can cut it as severe as you want. You have a lot of control over how your dovetail looks. So I wanted to make 2 different bows. I do end up making them the same size, but you don't have to do that. You can make one larger than the other. And I just like to use my bow dabra. And I'm only going to do 2 loops of each kind of ribbon. And I'm using my mat. I put it on the 12-inch and then I go out to the 6 and the 18, so that helps me keep my loops even. And then I'll also check it by pulling up the bow or the loops, pulling them up to the center and see if they line up. And then I am leaving the tails on here. I'm not going to add them after. I think I did 10-inch tails. And you can do them perfect when you're done with everything. At first, I just kind of trim them away. I don't really measure each one. I just kind of eyeball the left by looking at the right. And then once you get your base loops and tails, you don't need to measure as much anymore because you can just use what you've already got down. So each time I go in with a different ribbon, I'm doing it slightly smaller. So I'd say about a 1/2 inch smaller for each one. So if I did 6 inches of the red, I'm doing 5.5 of the black, and then I'll do 5 of this teal. And then this one I would do 4. And I wanted this to be the center, so I didn't want one single loop for the center. And you'll see the way I fluff it, it all works out. So now I have a teeny tiny zip tie because I'm out of big zip ties. And I'm very carefully wrapping it around the bow to get it started, and then I'll pull it up. Then I'll center my zip tie. You can kind of see the crease that's created by the bow dabra, so you know where to put your zip tie. And now I'll just slide my pipe cleaner through, and that's what I use to attach it to my wreath. You could also use wire if you wanted to. And then I'll pull the zip tie really tight. And you really want this to be tight because as you're fluffing your bow, you don't want anything to pull out. And then you just stick your hand into the loop and you spread your fingers apart and then kind of pull it up and down until you're happy with the way it looks. So I stack my ribbon the way I like to add it to the wreath, and then I fold it in half to find the center and then crease it. I'll pinch at the crease and then add that into the pipe cleaners, twisting 3 times, and then I roll it down with a glue stick. You can also use a pen, or you can actually roll these down just free-handed, but I like them all to be the same size when you roll them around. And then I fluff my ribbon by making an X. If anyone's interested in following me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Southern Wreaths More, on Facebook at Southern Wreaths, and I also have a Facebook group called Southern Wreaths and More. I also have all of these links in the description below. Okay, so I have a confession. A lot of times when I'm making wreaths, I don't know 100% where everything's going to go. So I'm adding ribbon to every single section. If you already planned out your wreath and you know where everything's going to go, you don't need to add ribbon behind your sign or behind your bows because you won't see it. So if you already know what it's going to look like ahead of time and you've put a little thought into it, then you don't have to worry about wasting ribbon like I did. So I was just showing you there a second ago that I do the outside ribbons the same as the inside. Instead of fluffing them in an X, it just usually looks like a bow tie where the top part's straight across and the outside feathers out. And then to add my pipe cleaner to my sign, I'm using some cardboard that I folded into 3 pieces, and it was already doubled up. It was from my pipe cleaner bag. And I'm just going to use my staple gun. And you saw there I was checking it. I was just making sure the staples didn't go all the way through. If you're not comfortable with this, there are other ways that you can attach signs. But I added one to either side of the sign on the back. And you can see here, you can't see the staples on the front. Even if you do, sometimes you can just push them back and then just kind of smooth out the sign, and then you can't see that it's there. And I just feed my pipe cleaners through to the back and then wrap it around the frame. And I'll show you that here. The other side I was off camera, so you couldn't really see it. So I just pull it through, and then you could do either 1 or 2 bars, whatever's more comfortable with where the sign's located. And then I'll just twist it around and then tuck it where the pipe cleaners aren't sticking out. Again, you don't want to scratch someone's door. And then I'm just pulling the ribbon out the best I can from behind the sign. I'm only going to show you how I add one of the bows. I do the exact same thing for the other bow that I put at the top left. I'm just feeding it through the mesh, and it takes me a second. That's why I cut to this, because it takes a minute. But you'll just feed the pipe cleaner through to the back and then wrap it around the frame the same way you did with the sign. And then you can kind of adjust it. The great thing about having it on pipe cleaners is you can kind of move your bow up and down until you're happy with it, and then you can go back at the end and make sure your pipe cleaners are holding where you want them to. That's what's nice about using pipe cleaners versus like a thinner wire. Sometimes it gets really knotted and it's hard to take it apart. Pipe cleaners are very forgiving. So I like these balls on a stick, but they were really long. So I'm just putting it through to the back and then attaching them with zip ties. And I'll show you how I fix the sharp part, because I do trim this off. And then after I add these, I'll trim it away, of course, and then I push the sharp part away from the back. And then I'm going to trim this stem. And I'm doing it as close to the wire as I can, because I, again, don't want to scratch someone's door. I'll show you after I add the next one. Okay, so after I added the last ball, I'm going to show you how I fix it to where it doesn't poke out, like there's not a piece of wood there. I'm basically just wrapping this pipe cleaner around and around in different ways and different directions to keep it from being sharp. But that's it. That's how I made my teal and red and black Christmas wreath. If y'all have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can email me at craftingwithlee@yahoo.com. Thanks so much for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.